Today we're gonna go over some of my favorite tips that's gonna take your skills from a beginner pellet grill user all the way to an advanced user and save you from making some of the same mistakes that I made myself. But don't go anywhere, I have a few bonus tips for you after this. So let's waste no time. Let's get to it. So tip number one is to read the manual. Just kidding. No one reads these. So number one is don't miss the burn off. That's right. Sometimes it's called a burn in. Before you fire up that grill and start cooking on it, you want to burn off all the manufacturer's oils that are still on it. So you want to get rid of that nasty, bitter taste that's going to happen if you don't burn it off. So trust me, burn it off. Follow the manufacturer's instructions on how to do this. Definitely check the manual. Oh wait, we need that manual. Some will have it go around 350 for about 30 minutes and then you crank up the heat to burn it all off. But this is a step that you don't want to miss and a lot of people do. So when you get that new pellet grill, before you cook, burn it in. All right, so tip number two. So this is gonna sound pretty obvious, but it's something you definitely wanna do, and that is to maintain your grill and to clean it out. Pellet grills, just like any other grill, get dirty. They build up with ash, which is something different than you're gonna see in propane grills and other grills. So here's a few steps that you can do to make sure that you're cleaning this grill out properly. Clean the grill grates after every use. Empty the ash and clean out the fire pot regularly. Check and clean the grease tray and do a deep clean every few months. These can go up in flames. I'm gonna say it right now, once again, they do have grease fires, just like propane grills and other grills out there. So make sure to clean it out. It's one of the biggest things that you can do. All right, tip number three, use high quality pellets. It's gonna make a big difference in your barbecue and it's gonna make a big difference inside your pellet grill. So good quality pellets, they burn better, they burn hotter, they produce less ash. I've had pellets from other companies, not gonna name them on here, but there's been parts in there, there's been metal in there, there's been plastic inside of them. You just don't want to do that. Don't cheap out. So these are the two that I use regularly, Jax by Jealous Devil, and obviously Traeger. They both make amazing pellets. A couple things you want to look out for. You do not want pellets that you put in a wood stove. You want food grade pellets that are meant for pellet grills. That's a big thing. So again, invest in high quality pellets and you'll get high quality meals. Pellets do absorb moisture, and what happens is they start to crumble, they don't burn well, they put a bitter taste in your food. So we always want to get an airtight container to keep your pellets. After a long cook, if it's going to rain, especially if you're in a moist area, you're going to want to drain the pellets, and a lot of pellet grills now have these little latches you can open up, pour the pellets into a bucket. Even if it's just a Home Depot 5-gallon bucket with the lid, that works perfectly fine. You don't need to get anything fancy, but you don't want to leave pellets in the hopper for a long period of time. All right, so tip number five, and probably the most important out of all of these tips that I'm gonna give you, is to subscribe to this channel. If you're not subscribing to this channel, you're not gonna find old tips like this and new recipes and new grill reviews and tons of different things. So if that's something you're into, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on those notifications so you get updates every time I put something out. Number five, and something I hear about all the time, and it's definitely happened to me in the past, do not run out of pellets. Prepare ahead. Make sure you have pellets in there. Make sure you have backup pellets. The last thing you want to do is step away and all of a sudden you ran out of pellets. You come back, the grill's now at 50 degrees, your food's getting cold, and you have no way to get it back up and running. Especially if it's a late night cook and you're cooking overnight and you just don't have pellets and you can't get pellets, you're going to be in big trouble. So make sure you have pellets on hand. So number six is not leaving the lid open when you start up the smoker. I've actually seen a lot of people say that you have to do this every time, and that isn't the case. Every pellet grill is different. The augers inside them are different. I have a new Traeger that just came out the Woodridge, and they recommend leaving the lid closed. Now in older Traegers that I had, they recommended leaving it open. Camp Chefs I had, leaving it open. So read the manufacturer's instructions on starting the grill. I would definitely recommend that. Don't just leave it open. That's not just the best way for everybody. Do it based on your grill and you'll get the best results. Okay, tip number seven, and another tip I see happen way too often, is unplugging your smoker without running the cool down process. Every pellet grill out there has a cool down cycle. There's some way to start it, and definitely again, check that manual because it's going to tell you exactly how to do it. You do not want to just unplug your grill when you're done, because what's going to happen is you're going to get a buildup of pellets. You can have auger jams. The next time you go to start the smoker, you're going to have a ton of smoke. I did this one time when I first got my first pellet grill, and the neighbors actually called the fire department on me. It was insane. There was smoke everywhere because there's pellets now still left in the fire pot that haven't burned off. You're adding new pellets to it, and once that ignites, there is way too many pellets in there, and there's nowhere for that smoke to go. When you open it up, it's going to be a smoke fest. So trust me, run the cool down cycle every single time before you turn it off and unplug it. All right, moving right along. Tip number 8, make sure to keep your internal temperature sensor clean. All pellet grills have one of these. They tell this grill what temperature it's at so it can do its job and make sure it's getting enough pellets and enough smoke to your food. But they can build up. They can get smoke on them. They can build up with ash. They can get nasty. So what you're gonna wanna do is clean them periodically to make sure that your grill's getting the right temperature. So what you're gonna wanna do is wipe it down with a damp cloth. We don't wanna go too crazy here. We're not trying to ruin it. We just wanna get it clean. So you take a nice damp cloth, get it off. If you need to, you can use a soft brush to get any built up residue off of it. And include sensor cleaning definitely in your routine grill maintenance. So as you're cleaning that grill, clean the sensor as well. All right, so tip number 9. Know your pellet grill. This is very important. Pellet grills, most beginners think that they have even heat across the entire pellet grill, and that is absolutely not the case. Most of the time, the top rack is a little cooler than the bottom rack, or vice versa, depending on the smoker and where the heat source is coming from. So you definitely want to know your hot spots and your cold spots, and this way you can move food around accordingly, and you can put things that need to be heated at a higher temp in those hot spots, and you can put things that need to be cooked at a lower temp in the colder spots. So one way I recommend doing this is the good old biscuit test. You line the entire smoker with biscuits, you let it run at 350 degrees until they're done, and you can see which ones are hotter, which ones are colder, which ones burnt up, which ones crisped up almost to the point where they're not even edible anymore, and which ones are barely undercooked. And that's how you can get a good gauge on the temperature zones of your pellet grill. Number 10, don't overload your grill. And what I mean by that is don't load it up with so much food that there's no air or no room for them to heat up evenly. Pellet grills, just like anything else, need airflow. They need to move heat around the meat and around the vegetables and whatever you have on that grill. So when you load it up, and a lot of these companies say, oh, we can handle 8 pork butts, and we can handle 5 briskets, and we can handle XYZ. Yeah, that might be great, but do not put that much on your pellet grill. It's gonna have uneven cooking. You're gonna have hot and cold spots on your meat. Definitely spacing between so your food can cook properly. Tip number 11, do not neglect the preheating phase. This is important for all pellet grills. When you put your food on, you want the grill to have acclimated to the heat. You want it to have consistent heat and have the metal heated up. You want to burn off any of the old stuff that was still on there so it doesn't get into your food and give you some bitter flavors. So what you want to do is let that smoker preheat until it's done. Some will give you a timer, some won't, but just know once it hits your target temp, it's usually great to cook on. Number 12, cooking at incorrect temperatures. Now this doesn't have as much to do with the pellet grill as it does with cooking food in general. And this was one of my biggest mistakes I made when I first got my pellet grill, my very first one. My wife and I, we love chicken, we love spatchcock chickens, whole chickens, so we decided to make a spatchcock chicken, put it on our pellet grill, smoke it at 225 degrees until it hit 165 internal. We took it out, we bit into it, we were so excited, and it tasted like absolute rubber. The skin was so rubbery and tough, we couldn't even bite through it. The meat itself was great, but the skin was horrible. So everything that you cook, just like inside your house, just like inside your oven, has temperatures that work better. Chicken, you will not render the fat inside of chicken skin at 225 degrees. We will get into that in some recipe videos, so I urge you to check out my crispy chicken skin video on chicken thighs. I'll put the link above here if you're interested on how to do it, but there are some tips like smoking it at 225 degrees for a little while just to get some smoke flavor into it, and then cranking up that heat. So just remember, anything that you would do inside your house when you're cooking, it's all going to translate to the pellet grill. There are meats, just like brisket and roast and other things that take a while, that you have to braise them, that you have to cook them low and slow. Those are the things you're gonna wanna cook low and slow on your pellet grill. But things that need high heat to render fat and to really get crispy, you're gonna need to crank the heat up and get that in there. And trust me, you will still get amazing flavor at 350 to 400 degrees on a pellet grill. All right, finally, my last tip, number 13, if you're looking, you ain't cooking. And that's the truth. Don't open the grill cover all day long. You don't want to do that. You don't want to let the heat out. You want to let the process happen. So use a good internal thermometer so you can keep an eye on the meat and the temperatures that it's at while you're outside of your grill and you're not opening the lid. It's always fun to look at it. It's always fun to see the process, and you're going to want to do it. And trust me, I do it all the time. But keep the lid closed as much as possible. Let that smoke flavor penetrate. Let barks build. Let the pellet grill do what it's supposed to do. So again, if you're looking, you're not cooking. All right, bonus tip number 1, let your meat rest. This is so important. This is important to all areas of cooking, not just on a pellet grill, but it is super important, especially on low and slow cooks where you're cooking brisket or short ribs and they're cooking for 8 hours, 12 hours, sometimes even more. you want to let your meat rest. By letting your meat rest, the juices contract back into the meat, the muscles relax a little bit more. When you slice right into meat after it's cooked and it's hot, you're going to watch the juices run out. It's going to result in not as juicy meat. So the biggest tip that I can give anybody is to let your meat rest. And we're talking 10, 20 minutes, and on bigger things like brisket, hours. Hours will be your friend. Trust me, you're gonna get a much, much, much better result by letting your meat rest. All right, before we get to my last tip, if you're getting any value out of this video, if you like this video, if you like what I'm doing, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on those notifications so you get notified when I have new videos. I'll be putting out videos much, much more going forward, all different types of videos, recipes, cooking videos. Also be sure to check out my website, fattybuttsbbq.com. Tons of recipes on there. I'll be doing videos that complement those, so you can always go back and forth and check those out. Again, thank you so much for watching this far. God bless. Here's the last tip. And my number one tip out of all the tips out there, and again, this has to do with pellet grills, it has to do with cooking, it has to do everything. Plan ahead. Make sure your meat is thawed. Make sure you have more than enough time. Trust me, when it comes to smoking meat, if you haven't done it yet, if this is your first time smoking something, it's gonna get away from you. There's gonna be time where everybody's sitting around waiting for the meat or the food, whatever you're out there smoking, and it's just not ready, and you're not even close, and you start sweating. You see memes out there about it, you see people talking about it. Trust me, it is not fun when everybody's starving at the table, asking when the food's gonna be ready. You're not even done, and then you haven't even given it a chance to rest yet. So plan ahead. Give yourself more than enough time. Defrost your meat. Season your meat. Get your pellets. Make sure you have extra pellets on hand. Make sure the grill's preheated. Make sure there's no issues with the grill. Start it up early. Make sure it works. I've had times where I went out there to start it, and there was an issue with the controller, and the grill just didn't work, and I had to get new parts in from Traeger. So just do yourself a favor. Make sure everything is ready and plan ahead. One thing that I like to do that works really well for me is having a checklist. All the things that I need to do that day, and then times as well. I start at what time I want to eat, what time everybody's arriving, what time do I want this food on the table? So then I start working back from there. If I want this meat to rest for 2 hours and everybody's coming at 8, then at 6 o'clock, that has to be off the grill. So what happens then? I need to know that I have to wrap it. And after I wrap it, it usually takes about 3 hours. So I'm working my way back from there as well. So now we're at 3 o'clock. And if you do this, it's just gonna give you a great way to see the day, to see times. You can adjust your start times and you can adjust based on that. So that's one of my tips that I think is gonna really, really help your barbecue, really help your journey, and really just make it a much more overall better experience. Alrighty, that's it. So thank you so much for watching this video. Hope to see you in the next one. God bless, and have a wonderful day.